Okay, well, welcome back, and this is going to be the fourth and final segment. This is chapter 10 now of Old Be Gone, and this is once again global warming slash climate change part 4. So let's. This is mainly just some suggestions, and this has to do mainly with housing. Now, if we're going to rebuild our society to accommodate ourselves for a lack of oil, we may not want to build houses much anymore. We want to swing over to apartments or condominiums, however you wish to describe it. And that might prove beneficial, but it might not be practical for all areas. Uh, so something you may want to consider when you do build a house is that you think about uh, just making it a one-story dwelling. No more two-story dwellings. And the reason why I say one-story dwellings only is that, the air conditioning factor. When you have a two-story home, I know that when I was growing up, it was, man, they would burn a fire in the fireplace and that would go up our stairs. Man, sometimes our rooms upstairs were so stuffy I would crack a window in wintertime just to keep it cool in there. And naturally in the summertime, as that heat rises, it's harder to air conditioning something on a two-story house. It's not that big of a deal. It's just something you might want to consider. But there's something else I would consider if I was building a new home. Maybe it's something we ought to do for all new dwellings. Is I do believe solar panels should be the makeup of the roof. I think we ought to get away from shingles and all that kind of stuff and put solar panels on them. Not because it's something that I would mandate, but I would think that in the future, even if we do build nuclear reactors, if those things have to go offline, or if they do go offline for some sort of reason, if everybody has solar panels somewhere, maybe it's just your east wall of your house. I don't know. I don't want it to be a government mandate. I think it's something that should be a decision of whoever's building the house. Maybe what you could do is make it to where you can't see the solar panels, from your yard or something like that, so that it doesn't take away the eye appeal of the home. Maybe that's a better way to approach it, so that when you're trying to sell a home, they look at it, oh, it's beautiful, and yet you got solar panels on the roof. So just a thought there on that. I think solar energy is beneficial. It basically is free energy in a way. It's not free installation wise, but if you're wrapping it up in the cost of a new home, if it costs $3,000 or $4,000 to put the roof on there, so what? Put that out over a 30-year loan, it's minimal. It's no big deal. So it's just something to think about. If you're going to build a new house, you may want to think about putting solar panels on there. That's up to you. But there is something I've thought about for a while now, and I don't know how feasible it would be to retroactivate, but I've always thought that if you look at a cave, and I'm not talking about living in a cave, I mean, look at the atmosphere of a cave. It stays pretty much the same temperature all year round. I don't know if you really knew that or not, but that's pretty much true. Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, I think, has an ambient temperature like 72 degrees all year round. And it got me to thinking about something. If you are building a new home, or even if you have an existing home, actually, it doesn't matter if it's new or old, what if you took and built a grid work underground in your yard like this, just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. 100, 200 feet, whatever, with just a real little bitty piece of piping. Doesn't have to be big. And what if you hooked that up to a vent system where you had a vent system in the bottom of your house and a vent system in the top of your house, and you sucked that warm air down into those vents, circulated it underground, and kicked it out in your vent that you got downstairs, or if you got a one-story dwelling, then it's at the base of your home, down there by the baseboards. What kind of asset would that be to your air conditioning and heating bill? And more importantly, how would that work in the wintertime? And when you think back to that cave, I guess you'd have to put this like 4, maybe 5 feet underground. I don't think you could put it a foot underground, or 2 feet even, really, because some places where it's really cold, you may just be bringing in cold air into your house in the wintertime. But when you get in places where it's not so cold, would the circulatory pathway give you an ambient temperature that would aid in heating your home in the winter and cooling your home in the summer? It's just a thought I had. It's not anything that's, it's not a major thing. It's not going to rock the world. But I've always thought about that. And I think a natural circulatory pattern would develop. But if it didn't, you put a fan up in the ceiling or on your second floor, whatever, and suck that warm air out. That way, force it through the pipe. Eventually you'd have a circulatory pattern that gets you back to where your cool air comes down at the bottom. But man, even if it just aided you in 1, 2, 3 degrees or 4 degrees, that's that much less energy we would have to spend over time. And those things don't have to be made out of, you could run a rubber hose for that matter. It doesn't have to be anything special. I guess the biggest consideration is you want to make sure that it doesn't rot underground. But if you put it 4 feet down, most roots are not going to get to it, especially if you got, a good sized yard and you got mainly grass. Well, you just put it where there's no tree roots going to get to it. Maybe it'll last 50 or 100 years. And by then, you're gone anyway, and somebody else's job to replace it. But if he replaces it and it lasts his lifetime, then that's not that big of a deal, especially since that's not going to be very expensive. If it's just a rubber hose, that's not going to be very expensive. Okay? That size of a hose, maybe 2.5 to 3 inches, maybe go up to 4. Kind of like those, what do they call them? Those irrigation pipes, that they have, those little black ones. You can get them like your home stores, your bigger home stores. You can get them there that they use for irrigation. They have the little slits and holes in them, so that if a root does get in there, it doesn't break the tubing open. It allows the root to slide down inside there. Even something like that would work, and that's not very expensive. So if you replace it once every lifetime cycle, but it gives you those 3 or 4 degrees of added heating and or air conditioning, looks to me like that'd be a pretty good idea. I don't know how feasible that would be for an existing dwelling, but maybe something you could do for a new dwelling, because everything's new. Just before you build your house, you just dig it all out and use those things like you see on the side of the road when they're digging ditches. They got those little thin blades. You just drive that down, take care of the hole, stuff it full of the tubing, and then build your house, and you'll have your circulatory system already in place. I don't know that that would replace air conditioning. In some places in the country, it may. You get farther up north where they only have a week or two where you have any real hot summer, like say Montana or something like that. That might work perfectly fine. You may not ever need to buy an air conditioner. Of course, you may not need it now anyway. I don't know. I don't live up there. I've never been there during the summer. But it's just something that I thought about. Why not let the ground provide you with the cool? It would be like a heat exchanger, basically. You pump your hot air into it, and you get colder air out. That makes kind of some sense to me. But then again, it's just food for thought for you to think about. Um, I'm never going to be a homeowner. I don't like the idea of owning a home. I'd rather own a condo, if anything. I've lived in apartments most of my life, so, you know, I got to use the old air conditioner. Anyway, those are just some final wrap-up food for thought type things. Just remember, with global warming and taking that atmosphere, taking that CO2 out, just remember, colder days are soon to come if you do that. Thanks.